of Appeal meeting. We call this meeting to order. The time now is 5 o'clock. It is our custom that we begin our meeting by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all stand, face the flag. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If anyone else is going to be, is there going to be any public comment? If you want to speak, if you would fill this form out and please print to your name. That would be greatly appreciated. Notifications. We good on notifications. Adoption of the agenda. I guess we want to make adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then have been adopted. It's been adopted. Approval of the minutes, December 16th. We had a chance to look those minutes over. Any corrections, deletion?
I move for approval.
Second.
Made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes have been, the December 16 minutes has been adopted. Item number 6, Mr. Graham Trask, special use permit. Mr. Trask, it's not your first rodeo, so come on up.
Sounds good. Good to see everybody again. I'd just like to recap where we are. This is for a special use permit for a drive-thru restaurant. In your December 16th meeting, the SRT made a favorable recommendation to the ZBOA to approve a special use permit with 3 conditions. At that meeting, the ZBOA decided to defer a decision on the special use permit based really solely on traffic and congestion concerns, which would be addressed in the TIA. Today, and with the benefit of the final TIA, the SRT has already made a favorable recommendation for a special use permit with the same 3 conditions, which were incorporate the TIA recommendations, a staff DRB, architectural review, and obviously a stormwater requirement. The final TIA concluded that, as we already knew, that the SCDOT controls the road and the curb cuts. The SCDOT does not require any external traffic mitigation, meaning there's no need for a left turn lane. There's no need for a right turn lane. They have also approved the full access curb cut. There was a recommendation in the TIA for a 2-lane egress to allow for a dedicated right turn out and then a straight or left turn. The county's own traffic engineer, who I believe is here, has had an opportunity to look at the draft TIA as well as the final TIA. And she also highlighted that the TIA recommends a 2-lane egress. And as the developer, I agree to that. So I will agree to a 2-lane egress, right turn lane, and then a left straight turn lane, as the TIA recommended. There was also concern over a 7-car egress queuing that would block some of the parking. I think it's important to note, and my traffic engineer is also on, Stuart Day, that 7-car egress queue was for, well, that's the 95th percentile. The average queue is 3 cars during the peak hour. That's what the TIA said. And so that means the 95th percentile is for 3 minutes in the peak hour. That's 3 minutes in 1 day. And we can talk about that. I believe that we've met all the objective code requirements for the approval of a special use permit. The SRT recommends the approval of a special use permit. I believe that I've addressed all the traffic issues through the TIA and then through feedback from the county. And I respectfully request that based on that objective data, that the ZBOA issues this special permit, this special use permit, so that I can move forward. Any questions for me off the bat?
Any questions? And you said and I was trying to confirm in this traffic study, so the left turn exiting the property and the right turn, that is something that you agreed to do, not the traffic, I mean.
The traffic engineer,
Right.
the traffic study recommended that,
Mm-hmm,
and the original site plan was just one egress lane,
mm-hmm.
but I'm agreeing to put 2, and I'm the developer. So I'm agreeing with the TIA, which was a recommendation, a requirement from the SRT. So in other words, Kevin, I've got to come up with a new site plan.
I understand what you're saying.
Which
Yeah.
shows two exits.
Anyone else have any questions?
When can we expect to see that updated site plan?
Well, it's in the works. What I would suggest is that the ZBOA approves it based on a 2-lane egress, and that everything then goes to the SRT.
I'm reluctant to approve a special exception use without a final site plan that I know what's going in there.
Okay. What, you mean you can't accept a 2-lane egress?
I don't know what other effects that's going to have on the site planning.
Okay. I can.
Now, I mean, my colleagues may disagree with me, so.
I'm happy to come back in another month with a new site plan. If you don't trust the SRT to
It's not an issue of trust, Mr. Task, and I didn't say it was.
Trask.
Trask. Okay?
So I'm happy to come back with another site plan if that's a requirement of the ZBOA, showing a right turn lane out and then a straight and a left turn. That's fine.
Yeah, and it's just good to have all your paperwork before this board, would, so that we can have everything before us that we are voting on. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and you're putting a trust into the SRT to do what they need to do, but just to have all of the paperwork before us, that way we can see exactly what we're voting on.
Correct. And I'm much more comfortable that way, and I would suggest that you're much better off that way also.
Okay. So is that, okay?
That's,
Anything else? for me?
Yes, sir, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
You said there the maximum would be 3 vehicles in the queue?
That's the average queue during the
Okay.
peak hour.
What did you say would be at peak hours?
That is the peak hour. The peak hour is the morning hour.
But in this little review we got, it says 9 vehicles on projected queuing would be 9 vehicles.
What I have in front of me is average queue, peak hour is 3. I don't know what do you have?
From Santex
And yeah.
on the second page.
Stuart, you on?
I am on, I think that the reference to 9 was a previous version that maybe misquoted, but the cues from the memo dated January 25th show that the 95th percentile queue is 7 vehicles and the average queue is 3.
This was in Stantec's memo that Olsen sent through.
What's that based on? The average Dunkin' Donut line or?
Sure.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
What is that average 3 based on? The average for every Dunkin' Donut or that location?
No, that's for this specific site and the traffic counts that were collected. So the traffic on the main line, the gaps that would be available based on the modeling, and then the average departure rate, for the study. It's sort of state of the industry.
That site based on the traffic analysis for that road, that site, that use.
So then what I'm reading is inaccurate, is that correct?
Sounds like it. Yeah, it sounds like you've got an old version. I don't.
December
Right.
22nd, 2021.
Which one?
December the 22nd, 2021.
John, the most recent is January 25th, 2022. There's a memo from Stuart Day to Mr. Merchant
Yeah, it was,
that goes over the
Emailed
queue.
I think it was emailed to us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So this was one in the package.
it was,
Yeah.
but he
Okay,
emailed
thank you,
us an
sir.
updated one.
I see that now. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem.
Any more questions for Mr. Trask? I guess thank you, Mr. Trask. This is not a need, do we need, well, come on, you can go, hear from the county.
Okay, well, I think the whole reason that this project is before you, that's all been summarized. So basically, we received a TIA from, prepared by Stantec on behalf of Graham Trask. And so we hired BL Engineering to review the TIA. And so you received that letter, which was her review. And I wanted to clarify a few things. One is that TIA is based on there being 2 exit lanes. So, that this really needs to be updated because TIA is not based on the plan that you've seen. It's based on a revised plan that we haven't seen that would have 2 exit lanes. So that queuing that we're talking about leaving the site would be once they do have the 2 exit lanes. And so our concern as staff, would be that this plan, that can be done, that there's enough room on the site to show the exit lanes, and then also that the queuing that is necessary to leave the site, that there be enough length in both of those lanes to have that queuing. And then also how that would impact parking. So our recommendation, and I think Jennifer Beal can speak a little bit to some of the details, but I would just say in summary that our recommendation would be that this revised plan, whether it goes to the SRT or it comes back to the ZBOA, would show kind of how those cars would queue leaving the site and how that would impact the parking that's shown in the development. Because there's this concern that maybe during these peak hours there might be some internal congestion, and we're concerned that that might have an impact off-site. So we just want to make sure that those things are resolved with the plan that is. And Jennifer, I don't know if you want to speak to this issue of the 50th percentile versus the 95th, and this has to do with the difference between whether it's 7 cars or 3 cars. That's,
Yeah, sure.
all right.
Hi, Jennifer Beal with Beal Engineering. Rob and Mr. Trask have kind of summarized some of the items. The 50th percentile and 95th percentile that have been quoted, the 50th percentile is average. So over the peak hour, which in this case is the AM peak, and Stuart can go into more detail, any details on that, but the average is basically what we expect on average during that peak hour. So it's going to be less, it's going to be more, it averages out to 3. What the maximum queue is it occurs sometime during the peak hour, you will have approximately 7 vehicles. And so what Rob was mentioning was, that 7 vehicle queue will happen at some point. And then how does that affect the internal congestion of the site? How does it work with folks entering and the parking and everything? And that's the concern from the county standpoint. And then laying that out on the new site plan just so that you can get visual of what that could potentially look like at an average condition and then at this maximum condition as well. Any other questions?
I have a question. A concern that I have is turning left from there. That just seems difficult to me. And no one's really mentioned that at all. Have they discussed if that's going to be a backup or a difficulty? Or?
I think, Stuart, is that something that you can answer related to your analysis?
Sorry, I can't really hear Jennifer if you were asking me a question.
Stuart, she had asked what the concern that she has is related to the left turns out of the site. And can you speak a little bit about how that was handled in the analysis and how the level servicing?
The way that it was handled in the analysis is we just did it as a standard left turn. We did not do any sort of 2-stage gap acceptance or vehicle storage in the median, so they would have to have a gap for both directions of travel, and that's why that queue exists for the left turn that's longer in the AM.
But you assumed 2 lanes out, so the analysis assumed the left.
Well, I understand that having a separate one, but I mean, how long is it going to take each car to have that clearance from both lanes?
Stuart, did you hear that?
I'd have to go into the deep into the report in the appendix to find that answer. Hang on one second. I mean, that's going to be a significant delay turning left. And that's why we projected more cars turning right.
All right. Is he still looking for information?
Yeah, I think he's
Okay.
looking for something.
While he's doing that, may I respond? Every single
Trask.
enterprise
Grab, if you go.
along that.
If you're going to speak, come up, please.
Every single enterprise along that road allows for a left turn out.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah, so I appreciate the concern about this particular site, and it is getting a lot of scrutiny, but every single enterprise along that road, including just opposite, has the same situation. So I appreciate the question, but I don't know if this is particularly unique to this site. It's not. Every single enterprise has that issue. Sorry, let me just-
I've got that it would be over 300 seconds.
May I also just add one more thing, sorry. The SCDOT, of course, has evaluated this, so they are comfortable with that. I think the other point about the impact that the internal traffic or internal parking would have on the external road is a red herring. The SCDOT has already addressed that and said that there's no need for any external mitigation. So it really becomes an issue of wanting to optimize the internal flow. And I will say that anything is possible, but if you build everything to the 99th percentile, which lasts for 3 minutes in a day, you're basically tarmacking over the entire lot to allow for all these things. So the more you ask for, the bigger it gets, and the bigger it gets, and the bigger it gets. Just to keep in mind.
Thank you.
I'm still waiting for.
Yeah. What did you say? Stuart?
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah. I think you was retrieving some information for us.
Yes, I said the delay for the left turn would be over 300 seconds.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
300 seconds, I think he said.
Over 300 seconds.
300, okay.
5 minutes.
All right. So is there any more questions for anyone?
Yes, sir, I have a question for the county, if I may. I understand the concern on this left turn lane, but again, I have to ask, when that road is redone, is it gonna be like a lot of the roads in Beaufort where we've eliminated left-hand turns? That you only can make a right turn, then you gotta go up and make a U-turn to come back?
We don't know that yet
Okay.
for Sea Island Parkway. You know, that study, that work has not yet been done for that area.
That's all I have.
Anyone else? Thank you. All right, well, let's close this part of the meeting. We are going to open up for public comments. Mr. Mike? There you go.
He's for a different one, he's not,
Oh, he's not,
oh yeah, I'm sorry, yes he is.
said 6 and 7.
Got all mixed up, sorry.
Yeah, I spoke at the last meeting regarding the use of this property, and we were waiting on this traffic impact analysis, I guess. What I have heard tonight about this analysis that was done is all speculative. You know, we're talking about percentiles, speed, timing at different times and all. And we really do not need to speculate because we have the same exact use that's being proposed there just a few miles down the road. On the same road, Highway 21, a Dunkin' Donuts. And as I mentioned last time, we could all do our own private traffic impact analysis, nothing speculative. This is what is happening now in our city with the same business on the same road. The only difference being the existing Dunkin' Donuts is on Highway 21 where it has 2 lanes going each direction, a total of 4 lanes. This proposed unit is going to be where there's only 1 lane of traffic going each way. All anybody has to do, with no speculation, is to go at any time, 7:30, 8 o'clock, any time during the week, and see the impact that it's having on the same road with the same business in the same town. It's backed up the traffic on one of the lanes going west when there's 2 lanes going west. On the proposed, it's going to be 1 lane going west, and it's going to back traffic up on that. This is no speculation. We're not talking about percentiles and timing and all that. We have it already. Just please go look at that. You can see what a nightmare it has created there. Have any of you done that since I was here last time?
We've looked at it. We travel to the road.
Did you see what I'm talking about?
I mean, I travel to the road, so.
Am I exaggerating?
We hear you. You're doing the public comment. We hear what you're saying. We take notes of with your comment that you've made. But I understand what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that some of you all did look at that, because again, these traffic impact analysis, this is all speculative. what we're seeing with our own eyes is not speculative. This will not work. It's going to be twice, the impact is going to be twice as negative on the proposed site than it is on the existing site where the existing Dunkin' Donuts is. I mean, how can you reasonably even question that?
Thank you, sir.
Is there any questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Annette, I don't know, it's Bakers.
Hello and thank you. My name is Annette Baker. We're new here in Beaufort. We're living at 4200 Sage Drive in Oyster Bluff while we build our home in Celadon. We came here because we were taken by the charm of Beaufort and the low country, its friendly people. We also came here to escape traffic. I am opposed to the special use permit request for the drive-through fast food, its unique setup, and here's why. I wanted to learn about our area, so I read the 2018 Ladies Island Plan and noted its goals of creating a walkable island village center, strengthening our neighborhoods, managing congestion, and improving bicycle and pedestrian systems, among many others. These are very desirable community attributes, and I'm so glad I'm here because to follow through on these. This board has the power and the responsibility to make these goals a reality. And I think that voting for this fast food drive-through in its unique format for a special use permit does not promote these goals. I also reviewed the August 2017 Ladies Island corridor study, the traffic study. And on page 10, in figure 2.4, there's a photo of the exact intersection where Bill's Liquor and Graco entrance is that'll be right across the street from this new proposed unit. That is actually depicting right angle collisions, noted as the second most frequent type of crashes. The report specifically notes at driveway locations and unsignalized intersection, angled collisions are experienced more frequently because of the turning vehicles along high volume roads. I think this is a really important item to note. In the follow-up study, Ladies Island Traffic Study 2021, they update the collision data to include 2012 through 2019, noting 376 angled collisions within those project limits. That's 376 real people having a really bad day. We're impacting real lives. It seems to me that adding a fast food, unique format drive-through with one entry and exit, possibly to be revised, could really exacerbate a current problem and wouldn't help solve a problem. It certainly won't improve the walkability goals or help create the village feel. And I would much rather attend and solicit and participate in a local business at a coffee shop where I can sit and talk to my friends. That's much more enjoyable than running through and grabbing something and moving on. That's how I hope to meet more of my new neighbors. This board has the responsibility to look at the Ladies Island comprehensive plan and apply all the criteria when reviewing one specific special use permit. This is an opportunity to not contribute to congestion and potential traffic accidents. It'll be interesting to see the revised plan and see if it has that much impact. I think it's a pretty unique format for a fast food drive-through with its figure 8 configuration in the back, not even going to address the potential concerns within their own property. But with these concerns, I would urge the board to, at a minimum, postpone this event and ideally oppose the special use permit altogether. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Before we move forward, I'd just like to say this. I may not have said it in the beginning, but those who want to speak, you have up to 3 minutes. I just wanted to let you guys know that. Miss Vicky McBahey? Is she here?
I think she is, Mr. Chairman. I think.
Good evening, my name is Vicky McGahee, and I was just notified that the mayor is here, who would like to provide comment as well. So would he be able to come first before me?
No, you're here now.
Can't hear.
It's okay, I'll wait.
Okay, all right. I was just asked some.
Okay.
My name is Vicky McGahee, and I live in Newpoint, and I have lived in Beaufort County for 1 year. Thank you so much for letting me speak. You sometimes hear that everything in life goes back to the basics. Essentially, at some time, we all want to go back to the fundamentals to re-examine how did we get to a certain point. You've all discussed the special use permit request, and some were ready to turn this request down last month, but yet we are still here with little additional new information and no real changes to the initial 2021 proposal. So now we need to ask ourselves, isn't it just simpler and clearer to get back to the basics? The basics include the straightforward special use permit regulation. It states the applicant must demonstrate that their development is designed to minimize adverse impacts on the environment, traffic, and congestion. But we know clearly this is not the case for this development. The traffic study states that Sea Island Parkway and Sam's Point Road already experience undesirable delays, and we know the establishment is going to bring in more traffic. A 2016 study by the Quick Service and Casual Restaurant News found that sales volume at Dunkin' Donuts with drive-thru skyrocket. There is no mention that it slightly increased traffic. It is no mention that maybe you should do a drive-thru because it will possibly help your business. No, they use the word skyrocket. It also states that Dunkin' Donuts with drive-thrus have 23% higher sales volumes than other traditional locations. And the senior vice president of operations for Dunkin' stated that it was most important to them, not even the menu items, disturb their speed of service at the drive-thru. So the bottom line is their goal is to get as many customers in and quickly out as possible. The traffic study also states that cars going westbound on Sea Island Parkway are actively transitioning from 2 lanes to 1 lane, directly at the entrance and the exit driveway. And that this right lane will become a de facto turn lane for the establishment. Yet oftentimes drivers still need that entire westbound lane to transition to 1 lane. So if we get back to the basics, we have to ask ourselves, why would the zoning board consider an establishment which does not comply with the special use permit regulations? The proposal does not comply with the Ladies Island Plan of 2018 either. That plan is to create a walkable Ladies Island Center, strengthen neighborhoods, manage traffic congestion, and improve bicycle and pedestrian system. It also does not comply with the newly founded beautiful Beaufort Alliance that is dedicated to preserving and honoring the uniqueness of Beaufort, one of the few remaining towns along the coast that has not been destroyed by rampant development. One of the founding members of this much-needed organization is Trask. One of their key issues is to ensure that no more traffic is dumped on Woods Memorial Bridge onto Carteret and Bay Street. But with increased traffic for this establishment, it's going to result in more traffic being dumped on Bay Street. In closing, I'd like to use very similar language as used by Trask in his paid advertisement in the Beaufort paper. If this proposal comes to fruition, with the passage of time, Ladies Island will become filled with national chain stores as replacements to local ownership. Please use the powers of the Zoning Board of Appeals to stop this project and preserve the unique treasure that is Ladies Island. Or simply put, it's time to get back to the basics. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Chuck Newton.
You let us know when you're tired of seeing us, by the way. Thank you. I just want to underscore the fact that while this discussion is largely about traffic this time, there are 4 standards that have to be met in the code to permit a special use permit, approval of a special use permit. We shouldn't lose sight of that. That being said, we are dealing with traffic, and back on December 16th, when this group met previously, there were three of the group at that time, that voted to deny a special use permit requested in the application. Half of the commissioners seemed to agree that the application did not meet any of those, all or most of those published standards and conditions for approval. But on request by one commissioner, this vote was vacated, and the board agreed to postpone a decision until a satisfactory traffic analysis had been prepared and submitted. This analysis is now in hand, and it's been reviewed by an independent engineering consultant. It changes nothing. This 40-page document holds pages and pages of traffic counts and the like, but it fundamentally concludes that traffic congestion along the Sea Island Parkway is bad and not getting any better. In a stretch of Sea Island Parkway that has 5 significant intersections, 4 are currently rated D, loss of service, and 2 of those, loss of service F. But as the report said, and I quote, we should be comforted by this new drive-in restaurant. Dependent entirely on vehicle traffic will not make matters worse. This is the same time we're spending $30 million trying to improve traffic on Ladies Island, not make it worse. The report summary relates that 2 intersections analyzed, 2 of the 5, currently experience and is projected to continue to experience undesirable delay in the AM peak hour with or without 131 Sea Island Parkway development. In one breath, it recommends no improvement to mitigate this delay. And in the other breath, it recommends a dedicated left turn lane, a shared through/right turn lane at the approach, and an exclusive eastbound turn lane onto the parkway from the project, all to benefit a single business and qualify this application for a special use permit. Makes little sense. Furthermore, the analysis is complete based on plans now under design by the county. They looked at a post-build timeline, 2024 on this. There are going to be changes to the parkway, many of which we expect to see started by 2024. One important change that the study did not take into account is the likely relocation of the traffic signal at Beaufort High School to Yeoman's Drive, 200 feet west of where this project is proposed. By the time the restaurant opens, existing westbound traffic will enter the parkway and be forced to climb into the queue at a new traffic light. They'll not be alone, but according to this traffic study, they'll be accompanied by another 1,054 vehicles hourly at the AM peak, creating additional congestion and contributing to an already difficult traffic situation. This issue was never considered in this analysis, but should have been looked at as a possible 2024 build condition. So it's useful to have a traffic analysis, but as I said, it changes nothing. This new drive-thru coffee shop will create additional traffic problems, but that is not the only basis for the denial of the application. One of the 4 standards for a special use permit, which the ZBOA is tasked with enforcing, is minimization of adverse impacts on traffic and congestion. Just described, this application clearly fails. In fact, the drive-thru business is built around increasing traffic. The facility is built around increasing traffic to the point that 70% of its revenue comes through the drive-thru window. This is not a normal retail establishment. There is no minimization of adverse traffic impacts and congestion here, but just the opposite. These are grounds for denial. The ZBOA is further empowered to set conditions for approval of a special use permit, one of them being to ensure the provisions that the comp plan and community development code are met. Given the focus on traffic minimization and traffic management and creation of a walkable pedestrian environment in the Ladies Island plan, which is part of the comp plan, this application fails this test as well. Grounds for denial. A 5th condition, prevention of or minimization of adverse effects on the public health, safety, and welfare, also cannot be met. In a recent 3-year period, there were 541 vehicle accidents along this portion of the Sea Island Parkway, 78% of which were rear-end or angle collisions. That's about, if you do the math, roughly do the math, that's about 1 every 3 days. This number is likely to increase with approval of a drive-thru restaurant, and in no way is this contributing to community health, safety, or welfare. Just the opposite. Grounds for denial. We don't oppose drive-throughs generally, and we have no enmity toward Dunkin' Donuts by any means. But no reasonable person could conclude that this project as proposed will contribute to the betterment of Ladies Island. This is just the wrong location for this type of establishment, and it fails to meet any standard by which it might be approved. I hope you agree, and when the time comes, I hope you agree to vote to deny this special use permit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Do you have plans about how the roadway is going to be configured in 2024?
We have a general idea, as Rob said.
But how do you expect the traffic engineers to guess about what those conditions are going to be?
I don't expect them to guess. I expect them to sort of take it into account, because that happens.
But there are
all the
no
time.
plans to take into account, are there?
There are rough design plans that have been generalized. There are several options that are being looked at.
That may or may not ever come to pass.
That's correct.
Correct. So what it seems to be you're asking is that the traffic engineers take into account things that may never come to pass.
If we made every decision based on the situation today, we would fall behind the wheel every time.
Which is what the code requires, that you make decisions based on what there is today.
Well, as I said, I don't think it's just simply a traffic. I mean, the plans have not been fully delineated. Decisions are yet to be made. And we don't know exactly how they're going to end up. But as I said, traffic's only one of 5 or 6 different issues that need to be taken into account by this board.
Any more questions?
Thank
you, Sanu. Mr. Murray.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the ZBOA, thank you for allowing me to be heard tonight, and thank you for the service important to our democracy and community development. I am the mayor of the city of Beaufort, but I do want to disclaim that my comments tonight are my own personal opinions and are not the formal position of the city of Beaufort or Beaufort City Council. I participated heavily in Ladies Island Implementation Plan Committee, spent a lot of time thinking about Ladies Island and how we reorganize what I believe is 10 pounds of development in a 5-pound bucket, especially along that corridor. I am generally supportive of more retail and restaurant and commercial development along the corridor for 2 reasons. One, because I think it helps Ladies Island residents not have to cross a bridge in order to get their daily services. And anyone who travels through those corridors on a regular basis understands that both the Mateer Bridge and especially the Woods Memorial Bridge downtown is under strain at certain peak hours of the day. Adding another bridge is very costly, both in terms of dollars and environmental impact, and something we will probably have to look at in the future. But at this time, there are no plans. I also selfishly, as a guy who lives downtown Beaufort and my businesses are in Burton, drive the 21 corridor. And as several of the other speakers have indicated tonight, we are dealing with 2 national coffee franchises and 1 chicken franchise that routinely have more than 20 cars stacked in their drive-thrus that have impacts of cars queuing on Highway 21. I personally call police dispatch, non-dispatch about once a month to have our officers come out and discourage folks from blocking traffic because it is a safety hazard. I respect the traffic engineer's opinion of 7 cars, but as some of the other speakers have pointed out, I'd ask that maybe you, at peak hours, sit by our couple of examples on the 21 corridor. And frankly, I'm not sure how we're going to fix it. We've been working with the business owners to try to encourage them to either queue folks faster or come up with other ideas. We've used law enforcement, which nobody likes to waste their time or inconvenience the drivers. And so we're in kind of a predicament on this side. I believe if you approve this special use request, we're going to have the same issue on Ladies Island. Not only that, the same issue, but I think it will be a much more dangerous issue given a couple of conditions. One, if you frequent Graco Shopping Center or Bill's Liquors, making a left or right turn out of that intersection now, especially at peak hours of the day, you take your life into your own hands, and we are seeing significant accidents in that corridor. Also, if you're coming off of St. Helena Island, headed into downtown Beaufort, that is right in the middle of the merge from 2 lanes down to 1. So now take a coffee queue standing out into 21, and so you're going to have folks racing from the Sea Island Parkway light, trying to get to the Woods Bridge, maybe hitting folks trying to turn into a coffee spot, which I think is prone for an accident, or you're going to have folks turning out of the chain, trying to make a left to go back towards St. Helena Island or other parts of Ladies Island. I think that also is a recipe for disaster. So I ask sincerely that you please don't create the condition that we're working very diligently to try to fix with no real solutions. And I think if you approve the special request, we're going to have the same issue and wonder how that happened. And it will happen because you guys approved the special request. I think there's a place on Ladies Island for this franchise. I think it will be welcomed, and I think it will be heavily used. I just think this particular site is trying to put a square peg in a round hole. I appreciate the hours of debate that you've spent on this project. I also appreciate that county staff has worked very diligently, I think, with the applicant to try to figure it out and to support private sector and the property owner's rights. Mr. Williams, as a private property owner, I will say I sincerely appreciate your obvious bias towards private property owners and trying to make sure that there is an investment in our communities. But again, respectfully ask that you deny this special exception because this is just a problem with no solution if you do approve it. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for your service to Beaufort County.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else for public comment for this item number 6? Okay, at this time, we close our public comment for this item number 6. I think we are requesting more information, so we will be moving this over to our next month's meeting. Go ahead.
I would like to say something. As I mentioned last month, that I've agreed with several of the speakers that this is not in keeping with the comprehensive plan. And particularly, if you look at the comprehensive plan on page 115, it talks about the Ladies Island Village Center is a focus planning area. And there's 5 principles in the focus planning area. And number 2 is we believe in allowing local communities to determine their vision and to define their growth. And as we've heard today and last month, the local community is opposed to this use, this special use, and they have according to our comprehensive plan, we should be listening to the local community for their vision for Ladies Island.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything else to say?
I would like to make a motion.
So we are requesting more information and
Okay, whatever you want to do.
for our next month meeting.
Okay.
So, I mean, you want to make a motion to move this to our next month meeting?
No, I was going to make a motion to deny it, and that way he wouldn't have to go to the trouble to, but we can wait till next month, that's fine.
What's your pleasure, Mr. Chairman? I think Ms. Fraser is certainly entitled to make her motion if she wants to make her motion.
Entitled. I mean, you can make your motion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to deny the special use permit based on our comprehensive plan that allows our local communities to determine their vision and to define their growth.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
And it is second. So this motion is to deny the special use permit for the Dunkin' Donut. So all in favor?
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, a little discussion here first. I appreciate Ms. Frederick's position, but we certainly haven't heard from everybody on Ladies Island about this. We've heard from a handful. And while they may represent a majority, I don't know that. I don't know that I'm willing to accept the position of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 Ladies Island residents, or people who aren't even Ladies Island residents, about what they think ought to go on this property.
Can I respond to that? Our Ladies Island plan, which was worked on over numerous months, had a large input of Ladies Island residents, and they said
Does it say no Dunkin' Donuts anywhere?
No, they say the area, meaning Village Center of Ladies Island, which is where we're talking about, is the focal point of Ladies Island, and no one wants to see it end up being a generic automobile-dependent suburban commercial strip. And that is in the Ladies Island plan, and that is the vision of the people that live on Ladies Island. We had some here today that spoke to that, but this is the plan that came out of the public meetings on Ladies Island.
Can I say something, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
You know, I respect everybody's opinion, and I lived in Beaufort since 1970, on and off. But I'm a come here. I'm not a been here. I think the only person on this board that's a been here is the chairman. And I would think most people in that audience are come heres and not been heres. I'm not hearing a lot of the been heres complaining about this. Only the people that moved here. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to add that we've not heard from anyone who's for it. If those people need to come out.
You should open the floor back up for a minute.
Well, the motion is on the floor and we have already, closed that. If you wanted to say something, that was the time to speak in the public comment. It's a motion on the floor. And it's been second, so I guess we draw the question. All in favor of denying the special use permit? Could you signify by just raising your right hand? Those 2 to deny and 3. That's 4. So therefore, the special use has been granted.
No, that's not the case. That motion just dies.
It just dies.
Because we take no action there.
1, 2.
If the vote is 2 in favor, 3 against, then the motion fails.
Correct.
So
that motion just
considering the
died.
failed motion, Mr. Chairman, I move that we carry this matter over to our next meeting so that we have in front of us an accurate site plan that reflects what the traffic impact analysis is based on.
Thank you, sir. All right. So we're now moving to item
Mr. Olsen.
number 6. Mr. Shane Olsen is requesting a special use permit to operate a short-term rental in a T3 zone district.
My name's Shane Olsen. For the last 2 years, I have operated a short-term rental at my residence. I have a guest home. I've been doing that for 2 years. I've paid all my accommodations tax. I've done everything above board and followed the law as it was written. As it was informed of me, the law was changed this year, and you're going to see a lot of people that have short-term rentals standing in front of you. The approach now is to bring that before the Zoning Board of Appeals. In the 2 years that we've had and operated our short-term rental, we have never had an incident where the police were called. We've never had a public complaint. We've never had any issues. We accommodate parking up to 3 spots. We've never had anyone have to park on the street. It's never been an inconvenience to our neighbors, that I'm aware of, at least. Matter of fact, one neighbor we had it going for a year, didn't even know that we had a short-term rental on site. And he needed someone for some family members to stay, and he reached out to us when he found out we had one within a block of his.
Could you speak up? I'm your neighbor. I'd like to hear what you're saying, please.
That microphone does not work back there.
So again, I've been operating for 2 years and not had any issues in any realm or problems.
So you said you've been operating for 2 years. What transpired to bring you in here today?
The code changed. I'm not sure when, where, how. I was notified by letter that as of January 1, any short-term rental had to go to zoning. The only short-term rentals that have been accounted for in the county, at my understanding, and the county could speak to this, is basically things that have been going on for 30 and 40 years, meaning Fripp, Harbor, the long established in their documented codes. I purchased the home because it does not have an HOA. It does not have any codes that restrict it. There was no restrictions when I purchased the house to do a short-term rental. And that's why I purchased the home that I chose. Because at the time, it met all the requirements to do short-term rental, and it was investigated at that time. And now the county has changed the law respectfully. That's I understand things change, and I'm here today saying I've done everything as I should, and just trying to continue a business that's been good for me and my family.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Your narrative says that you have 3 parking spaces and maximum occupancy of 8 people.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the county's staff report says that you're only renting 1 bedroom and you have and the county has limited the traffic to 2 cars. Can you explain that discrepancy?
I cannot. The county may be able to. I've never communicated. In my parking display, everything that's been presented from the beginning, I've always said 3 cars. The 1 bedroom is a unique definition. The way it sleeps 8 is there's a large open space upstairs that accommodates more like a bunk style. What we've seen is a lot of families that come in for graduation choose our unit because they can put some kids upstairs. It's not officially a bedroom. The 1 bedroom is downstairs. The 2 parking spots, I have the same document you're looking at, and I've accommodated. That's been from day one, so I don't know the 2 parking space difference, but.
Or maybe is the county rule that you can only have 2?
You can ask the county on their turn. Well, once we get through with him, then we'll have the county to come up and speak, and you can ask the county those questions.
Thank you.
I'm going to guess that's a misunderstanding at some point.
Any more questions?
Yes, sir. I'm looking at your plans. Where are these parking places?
Parking spots should be highlighted. I can, it should be highlighted. There's 3 parking spots. I count. I can park 6, sometimes 7 if they're smaller cars across the spaces where they're parked. I have a circle drive. And on the edge of that circle drive, we can park 6 to 7 cars.
So those 3 lines on the gravel drive are the parking places?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Where do you park your cars?
We only have 3 cars right now currently, and we park those on the outsides of those, meaning I can get 2 in between the garage door there. I can park in the garage if I choose to. There is beyond sufficient parking. Again, I've never had a parking issue in the 2 years that I've been doing this.
Are you aware that there is a petition that's going against having this short-term rental?
I'm not. I'm find that hard to believe. As I've said, most of my neighbors were unaware, and I would be interested to ask even those that are signing the petition if they're aware when I started. Meaning, because the way my home is set up, if you look at the plat there in front of you, where the unit is, my house sits between the next neighbor. So if you're looking at the plat, the McIlveen's home is on the other side of my house. So if there was any noise discrepancy or anything that was inconveniencing them, I would hear it before they would. On the other side is Byron Berry. He has approximately 5 acres there. Byron's home is actually at the front of that 5 acres, and he is at such a distance that, again, if there was any noise discrepancy or anything that was heard, that at that point, I would hear it before they would, and I would deal with it. Again, I'm on site. As y'all evaluate short-term rentals, one of the questions I think has to be asked is the property owner on site? I am on site. I manage it day to day. My family lives on the same piece of property. This is not going to be a place where parties happen. This is not going to be a place. I have children that reside in the home next door. We are not going to tolerate anything that would be an inconvenience to our neighbors.
Okay. Any more questions? Thank you. We'll hear from the county.
When Mr. Olsen came to the SRT, he told us he would be renting just the 1-story guest house And I think it was just one bedroom, so that's why we only did 2 parking spaces. He stated that he has been running his business for 2 years. I hate to say this, but he's been running an illegal short-term rental. Short-term rentals were only allowed in Beaufort County in zoning districts that allowed hotels. So he is in a zoning district that would not have allowed a hotel. So his 2-year short-term rental business has been an illegal business. So when the county decided to add short-term rental to the code, then all those people that were running these businesses have to come in and get a permit.
Let me, I'm not sure I understand that, Ms. Olsen. So, when was section 4.1, section 4.1.360 on short-term rentals was added to the code in September of 2020?
Yes.
So, what regulations were there in the code for short-term rentals prior to that?
None.
So,
It was never a use.
okay, so anybody could do it.
I think what you
Lodging was allowed in certain zoning districts. Short-term rental is a lodging use. They were only allowed in, like, bed and breakfast, things like that, were allowed in certain zoning.
But this isn't a bed and
not.
breakfast. It's not a hotel.
It's right.
It's
So
a use that wasn't regulated before 2020.
Right, and, well, we came to the board for short-term rental before, and we agreed that short-term rental was classified as anyone who rents their home less than 30 days. So it's a transient use. So if the zoning district did not allow for hotels or transient uses, short-term rentals were not permitted.
Even though the code didn't say that.
For one.
Yeah, even though the code didn't say that.
It's a transient use, it's a lodging. It's listed in the code as lodging. And
Okay.
anything,
I'm just trying to get to the point to figure out why it is that Mr. Olsen's even before us today.
he came before us because we added short-term rental to the code and we made them special uses in just about every zoning district, except for 2. And
And you're saying that his prior operation of a short-term rental prior to September of 2020 was an illegal use?
zoning-wise, yes. We would not have given him a permit to operate a short-term rental in his zoning district.
And it has been since September 2020, since he hasn't come for a special use.
He has to come for permits now that we have added it to the code and made it a special use.
Can I ask a question?
Okay.
Why was the county then collecting his accommodations taxes
I
all
can't
the
answer
time?
that.
Well, to me, he obviously was upfront if he was paying taxes.
I can't answer that. I deal with zoning,
Okay.
I don't deal with taxes.
Any more questions for the county? Thank you, Ms. Hilton.
Oh, I have another question for the county. In short-term rentals, does the county, in renting one bedroom, is there a limit on how many bedrooms, or is it a case-by-case?
No, there's no limit.
It's just the parking that's associated with the number of
Right,
bedrooms?
so we will do the parking based off the amount of bedrooms. They would have to show us, 3 bedrooms, it'll be, 3 parking spaces per room or something like that. I'd have to look at the code, but he told us it was 1 bedroom, so that's why he only has 2 parking spaces. So I don't know where the 8 people, because we weren't told that at the
Mr. Sheen, about how many residents or houses are within that community, that area, in which you see?
There's only, so if, I don't know if y'all have the ability to pull a map, an aerial map on your computers there. But I live at the end of the road. There's literally only 2 neighbors that I can even see from my house. There's a house across the street that Connie Rambo, the Rambos live in. and then there's the McElveens next to me. Other than that, there's a neighbor on the other side of the McElveens. But basically, you come down a road, it dead ends, you make a right, and you dead end into my property. When you make that right, there's only 2 houses from that point on, and then Byron Berry's property on the other side of us that does not access from that neighborhood. He accesses from, I'm not even sure what the next neighborhood would be, where Hobbit Hill is, and Personnel, that he enters from that, or from where that cancer center is, I believe, right there where that dirt road comes and wanders around back there. But there's only 2 homes that are even close, and I don't.
That's all right. I just asked because I see at least 9 individuals or 9 names on this, so I was trying to see approximately.
So what, my understanding, the county can speak to this as well, and this may be an educational moment for us all, because you're going to get these a good bit. At my understanding, the approach to send out letters is they take my home and they do a 500-foot or yard radius. My home sits at the end of one neighborhood and backs up to another. So you probably had a circumference that encompassed a neighborhood that's not even anywhere near me, that would try to come into that conversation because of how, and I don't know if it's yards, feet, I just know it's something like that.
Yeah. Thank you. Public comments. Patricia Yeomans?
Yes. How do you do?
Excuse me.
Nice to meet you.
Oh.
I live at 981 Edith Lane. And this neighborhood, this proposition just doesn't fit into our neighborhood. I brought my next door neighbor on the other side of me has been very upset about this, and she thinks she has COVID. She hasn't gotten it, and I pray she doesn't, because she sounded horrible. She brought this letter of it taped to my door, and I think she addressed it to Hillary Austin. I have to say, the zoning board, I've called 5 times in response to this letter that was sent out to 2 phone numbers last week, and I have not been, no one has ever responded to me. But anyway, I'm going to read this for my next door neighbor, Donna Neff, and she planned to be at the meeting tonight concerning this request for the short-term rental, which we think sounds like one of those Airbnbs or whatever. And since she's ill, she couldn't be here. She was trying to take a petition around, but that shorted to it, and I know there is a petition, and several of the community owners and all, it was faxed by the Penders, and I know they're on the petition that went around. We live on a cul-de-sac, and where he is, I'm right where at the dead end, Grafton comes, and Edith Lane is a little dead end, and there is a lot of traffic. My husband and I have a game every time we look out the window, and we see a car going, car coming, and there are not that many families back there. There's a lot of traffic. I will say that a few years ago, the house that Mr. Olsen lives in was owned by Larry Kaiser. He owned Jiffy Lube, and he had a stroke. And his son-in-law went around for a while. We've had so much traffic on the right-of-ways and all that the reason Larry died was because the rescue squad had difficulty getting up to the driveway. This is high, we live on high, the reason my husband and I, we moved here from, we've lived in Miami, and I said, that is high ground. It is high ground. And it goes up, and unless we have our cars in the garage, there is no room on the driveway for more than 2 cars, because you're going way up. That's the way they're all configured. And so a lot of people park on the right-of-way. And it's a little traffic jam. It's a little bottleneck up in there. We feel safe and secure. I'm reading from Donna's letter. And know all that come here. And the traffic has been elevated for the past many months because Mr. Olsen has already been doing short-term rentals. I do not want people here that have no investment in our tiny, family-oriented subdivision. And I can promise I speak for almost everyone that lives here. I do know one family that was reluctant to sign because they were afraid of making enemies. And that's not what we want to do. This is business. You know, your home is one of your biggest investments, and we need to safeguard the value and all of business. My husband and I are probably only two non-working, we're retired. We're probably the oldest ones in the neighborhood. And there are children. Everyone works, the parents or their own businesses. So it was kind of hard getting the petition around to some of them. Rentals to multiple persons at one time would create an issue with parking on this tiny street. To put it simply, this is not a neighborhood that needs strangers and traffic and the loss of feeling of security that we have. She said, I've spoken to people in other neighborhoods, and so have I, that said having short-term rentals in their subdivisions has been a nightmare. Some of these people there for a good time. You know, I know sometimes if you're renting to, say, a single school teacher or something for long term, that's different from people that are just there overnight or 2 nights or something like that. Many noisy weekends, cars constantly in and out, littering, people with no concern for the neighborhood, let alone the wildlife and the waters. She said, I myself didn't even think about that issue, but I am voicing a great disagreement with this appeal. This is not Harbor Island, it's not Fripp Island, it's not Hilton Head. It's a small, family-oriented, everyone knows everyone and their pets in this neighborhood. She said, I do not know Shane Olsen, as he's never even waved a stop to chat. However, I do not dislike him. And the same goes for me. I don't know him. This is not a personal thing. So she says, sincerely with gratitude for your service to our community and all others that work for Beaufort County. And I myself thank you for the same and your consideration of this. Put yourselves in our place. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. Do anyone else have any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Ms. Jones, were you aware of Mr. Olson's short-term rental business before this application?
No, but I wondered about all the cars.
Right. And have you ever seen any of his guests parking on the streets?
I don't know who all the cars, there were cars off along the right of way, and I don't know who they all belong to.
Thank you.
My husband and I, well, with COVID, I'm beginning to feel like a hermit. I'm beginning to like staying inside. But no, I didn't. I think he came once and met my husband. He returned some mail or something, and but I never met you or your family. And I waved at a car. You know, you can't tell with the way tinted windows and all who is passing also. But I'm sorry. I hope this doesn't cause hard feelings.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comments? Mr. Shane, I have another question for you. Well, let's close the public comment part. Look like come on forward. Have you had any complaints from any of their neighbors?
No, sir. As a matter of fact,
any of the neighbors complain?
The cars that she referenced in the street are John Rambo parks his truck and Connie Rambo parks her car in the street. The McElveens run multiple businesses. Currently, one of their business trucks are parked in the street in front of their house. It's a mobile tire repair. I've never had a single guest park on the street. We don't allow it. We tell them they have 3 spots. If they can't accommodate that they need to park elsewhere off-site, meaning not on the street, but like at the food line down the street. For all I care, it cannot be in the neighborhood. I think it's unique that even she mentioned when you asked that how were you aware he's been doing this 2 years? No, because there's been no complaints. There just simply has been no. The only issue that anyone has had to respond to was a fire and medical emergency where a lady ate shellfish at fish camp, and she had to be taken by the paramedics to the hospital. She had an allergic reaction, and that was it. And they came and got her, and away she went. Again, I live on site with my 3 children and my wife. This is not something that is like we are on site. This is not an Airbnb or a vacation rental where it's not hands-on management.
Thank you. All right. So, well, we're at that point where we draw the question. Can I get someone to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that based on the testimony we've heard today, the application before us, and the county staff recommendation, that we find this application meets the requirements for special use, and that we approve the application.
Second.
It's been made and second. All in favor? It's been passed. Thank you. Moving to item number 10. Mr. and Mrs. Craig Henry is requesting a special use permit. Short-term rental use. Mr. Henry. How are you?
You have the package. Are there any questions?
We like presentations like that.
It's 6:15.
Problem with that one.
I'm all the watering with the donuts. This is a little bit different than probably most that you're gonna see for the next month because we're right out in such a remote location. One residence on 8 acres and another 20-acre buffer field between the 8 acres and Eddings Point Road. Going all the way to the road, including the driveway.
So basically, you have no
You don't have any neighbors.
neighbors.
No.
Is that by design, Henry?
It came in helpful, yes.
Well, anyone else have any questions for Mr. Henry?
I understand it's gonna be quite an issue for y'all in the future with the, having to work through all of these, and I understand that the taxes should be collected and we're signing up with Tide Watch Realty to help manage the property, and they'll be collecting all the taxes and sending them in the various directions. So that's gonna get done.
Is there any questions for Mr. Henry? Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Thank you.
The county?
Recommended approval.
All right, can I get someone to put a motion on the floor?
Let's see, there's a public comment.
Oh, yeah. Public comment, and is there any public comment for this item number 11?
Unless
No?
Mr. Carroll wants to say something, so.
No, sir, not this time.
Close the public comment. With that being said, someone want to put a motion on the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that based on the application before us, the staff recommendation for approval and the testimony we've heard this evening, that we found this application meets the requirements for the special use permit, and that we approve the short-term rental use.
I'll second it.
Motion been made and second. All in favor? It's been passed. Mr. Henry?
Really quick for your long wait, right?
Pardon me?
I said it was really quick after your long wait.
All right. Number 11. Mr. and Mrs. Samuel, Manutti?
I think it's McNulty.
McNulty, requesting this variance to construct a house less than 50 feet from the OCRM critical line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Carroll. I'm an attorney at the law firm of Burr Foreman, and I'm joined here with Jen Foster with Court Atkins Group, and we both share the honor of representing Mr. Sam and Miss Amy McNulty in regards to this request for a variance permit related to 22 Lighthouse Court on Cape Point. And the reason why we are requesting this variance permit, Mr. Chairman, is that we want to be treated fairly and equitably like our neighbors on either side of the property. And when I say neighbors, unlike the prior applicant, we have neighbors on each side of our property, and each of those neighbors have built seaward up to 40 feet towards the ocean, and currently our client is not allowed to build that close to the water pursuant to Table 51160 in the CDC, which represents the river buffer setback line. And The reason why we believe that we're being treated unfairly in this case is that this subdivision plat was first recorded in 1994, long before the river buffer lines existed, long before the CDC in its current state was adopted later in 2013. And of course, the subdivision plat hasn't been updated since then, nor should it. That would be totally unreasonable to expect the county to re-review every subdivision plat in the event the code changes or there's any text amendment to the code. Instead, we have a process like this to determine if there are any extreme or unfair outcomes that result by applying the code in its current state. So in the narrative, I'd call your attention to two exhibits in particular. One is Exhibit C and the other is Exhibit F. And these two exhibits are site plans of the property. And in addition to being site plans of the property, the scope of vision zooms out such that you can see the neighboring properties on either side. And there's three lines at issue. One is a 40-foot setback line that is really an exterior boundary setback line that's established by the PUD zoning. And we have no quarrel with that line. The other two are established by Table 51160, which is the 50-foot river buffer line, and then the more restrictive 60-foot OCRM setback line. And as you can see from either Exhibit C or Exhibit F, lots 460 and 463 on each side clearly construct well beyond both of those 50 and 60-foot lines. And of course, you know, the reason why that is because they were constructed prior to the adoption of this CDC, which establishes the OCRM setback lines. So our proposal is to construct a home that would allow our client to have a total building area equitable to those along the road, and especially those right beside us. You know, we had considered moving the entire home closer to the right-of-way, thereby, you know, making every effort to comply with these lines. One exhibit in the narrative that I'll call your attention to is a letter from the Hague Point Architectural Review Board in support of the proposed construction in front of you, and clearly states that although we have not submitted an ARB request formally, informally they tell us in that letter that they would deny us moving the property or the construction on the property any closer to the road. The PUD zoning does establish a 25-foot right-of-way setback line, so it's really impossible for us to move the home any more inland or closer to the right-of-way. So that's why we're here today to request a variance to allow us to build up to the 40-foot exterior boundary setback line, which is a standard that's been applied to everyone else on Lighthouse Court.
Okay. I have a quick,
go ahead.
No, I'll wait till the last.
Okay. One clarification, the 60-foot setback was in place when your clients brought the property a year ago, correct?
That is correct, yes, ma'am.
Also, the zoning ordinance allows for situations like this in the average of the house, 5 houses on either side, that you can build a house that's equal to the average of the 5 houses on either side. So this lot is very buildable. I did the calculations, and the average size of the houses on five houses either direction is 3,770 square feet. And the clients, you stated that they're building one about 6,030 square feet. So they are seeking relief from something that they could have already had by right in there if they had stayed within the square footage of the houses on either side of them.
Yes, ma'am, and if I may respond.
Sure. I was just saying that that's one of the requirements that they have to meet, is that it's a hardship for them. And I don't understand why it is a hardship if the 60-foot setback was in place when they bought the property, and that they could build a house up to almost 4,000 square feet.
Sure. No, I understand the question. Thank you for presenting that. So just to be clear, there are two ways to encroach within this OCRM line. One way is to request a setback waiver, and that is not what is at issue today. And I
Right, I know that.
And I understand, and forgive me, I meant no insult by making that distinction. But the reason why I bring that up is that I do know that in the setback waiver application process, there is that rule that you mentioned relating to, we cannot provide a waiver in the event the buildable square area exceeds a certain threshold. I believe is the average of those on each side of the street. So, and that's right. And in regards to the 6,000 square feet, I believe the 6,000 square feet is that the total?
It is a total of covered and enclosed.
So that would be, both the heated square foot and the deck space.
I included that in my calculations.
Okay, great. So by applying the OCRM line to this property, we're losing 31% of our total buildable area. And if you were to keep the deck the same size, then, I don't have this percentage in front of me, but that clearly would cut almost straight down the middle of our proposed construction if we kept that same size deck.
Well, decks are allowed in the 50-foot setback. So they're not.
So, and the reason why I mentioned the subdivision plat, Ms. Frederick, is that, of course, the subdivision plat is represented in Exhibit B of the narrative, and there are no OCRM lines associated with that, and that plat was approved by the county. And that's why I went through this hypothetical where, of course, the county we would not want the county to be expected to go through all prior subdivision plats anytime there's a new setback line or a new text amendment to the CDC or anything like that. Instead, we have a process to determine whether or not, if a strict application of the new code unfairly treats a property owner in a way that the CDC didn't contemplate.
A clarification, I assume that that's not a deck but a porch, because the code says uncovered decks are allowed.
The 60-foot, not the 50-foot.
Between the 50 and the 60?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I was saying, and that's what this is showing, is in between the 50 and the 60.
Yes, ma'am, and each home on either side has a covered porch.
So is this covered or is it a deck?
So yes, we do seek a cover over this porch.
Okay.
So
The application was not clear on
that. So we can enjoy the property similar to lots 460 and lots 463. So, and again, if you look at that 40-foot building setback line, neither one of our neighbors, actually one of our neighbors to the south actually encroaches that 40-foot line just a hair. But again, in order to comply with the CDC as much as possible, we fully intend to comply with that 40-foot setback line. When this subdivision was initially developed, had these lines existed, these lots would be drawn up totally different than they are today, because it would cut the buildable area almost, here it's cutting it by 31%. So all we're asking for here is to be treated, held to the same standard that other homes on the lots adjacent to us have been held. And unfortunately, we can't move back closer to the right of way. But clearly, we've posted public notice, and to my knowledge, neither neighbor or anyone else on that street, for that matter, had any quarrel with us with this proposal. And we would ask that you agree with us, and that a strict application of the CDC in its current state, post 2013, does create an extraordinary and exceptional outcome for this particular lot owner and no other lot owners on that street.
Have you had the opportunity to review the county's recommendation?
No, I have not.
Okay.
We have not. We did meet with the county during the setback waiver process, and we were met with the square footage recommendation as to, I understand the county is tied from a setback waiver, which is why we're seeking the setback variance at this time.
All right, well, the county recommendation is the applicant, they recommend approval with the condition that the applicant shall install gutters along the rear of the house to trap the roof runoff and discharge it at a minimum of 50 feet from the OCRM critical line. Do you find that to be a problem with this?
No, sir. In fact, and Jen, if if you could add to this, but we do, our current plan does include, we would be happy to install gutters, but I will mention that our current plan, we did revise our site plan after this waiver meeting with town staff to include rain gardens that do capture runoff and lead that more towards the right of way within the boundaries that you just mentioned just now. So I want to make sure that my vocabulary is matching with yours. If the rain gardens meet that, you mentioned the term gutters. If I believe we may have already addressed that issue in the most recent version of the site plan that we included in our narrative. Am I getting that right?
You are correct. Wallace Milling with Whitmer Jones Kiefer is our landscape architect and has done the civil engineering on this, and we feel confident that we can achieve that goal.
Okay, all right. So your rain gutters is within the 50 feet from the OCRM critical line, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's actually behind the 60-foot OCRM.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
Is the county going to present?
They will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now we hear from the county.
We recommended approval. I have a question about that, because on 3 of the items, you said it was on the application of the development code of the land structure would not prohibit the use of the parcel of a, so they, on 3 of them, you're saying they didn't meet the requirements, and yet you still are approving it.
Well, we would have given them the waiver and the staff review team, but the house was too big. So he's really coming for a variance for the house size. I mean, we can't give them a waiver if they don't meet those criterias. So when they came to the SRT, the house size was much larger than the average. 5 left, 5 right. So they're here, they want the same waiver, 40 feet from the critical line. They can't pull the house up any closer to the road. So I recommended approval because.
And also that criterion doesn't deal just with that it prohibits the use, it also deals with unreasonably restricts the use.
Yes.
And I think that's likely the case here.
Yes.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. You good, okay. So with that being said, could I get someone to?
Let's hit this public comment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir, for keeping me checked. Is there any public comment for item number 12? If not, we close public comment. Now moving forward, could I get someone to make a motion for item number 12?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd move that based on the application before us, the testimony we've heard this evening, and the staff's recommendation, we find that there are extraordinary exceptional conditions that apply to the property in question. And those conditions are not the result of the landowner, and that the imposition of the strict requirements of the code on the property would unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And that we also found that the variance permit wouldn't confer any special privilege on the landowner, and that it is the minimum necessary to allow a reasonable use of the structure, and that it's in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the development code and preserves its spirit, and it would not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing or working with the neighbors, and that we approve this application. With the condition that gutters be installed along the rear of the house to trap roof runoff and discharge at a minimum of 50 feet away from the OCR and critical line.
So this motion been made?
I'll second it.
It's been made and second. All in favor? This has been granted. Thank you.
So it was worth an hour and a half wait. It was 2.5. Yeah, hour and a half. Good to see you, Ms. Carroll. And that narrative format is strangely familiar to me. Ask Mr. Nestor where that came from.
Right. I'll have to ask him.
No reason to reinvent the wheel, you know, so.
Old business, new business? Someone adjourn?
So moved. Oh, I think Ms.
So moved, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Done.
See you guys next month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.